The morning of my surgery arrived too quickly, like a storm you can see coming but can't outrun. The sky outside my window was pale and quiet, the kind of stillness that should have been comforting. But it wasn't. My hands trembled as I folded my children's clothes, setting them neatly on the edge of their beds, as if that small act could somehow protect them while I was gone. "Mom, are you going to be okay?" my eldest asked, standing in the doorway. Her voice was steady, but her eyes gave her away. I forced a smile, the kind parents learn to wear even when everything inside them is shaking. "Of course I will. It's just a small procedure." It wasn't. But she didn't need to carry that fear. I knelt in front of her and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Grandma and Grandpa are coming to stay with you. Remember, you'll be safe. I'll be back before you know it." She nodded slowly, but she didn't look convinced. Truthfully, neither was I. As I drove to the hospital, my grip tightened on the steering wheel. I had asked my parents for help the night before, my voice careful, measured like I was negotiating something fragile instead of asking for basic support. "Can you stay with the kids while I'm in surgery?" I had said. There was a pause. Too long. "Well, we had plans." My mother replied, her tone already hinting at inconvenience. My chest tightened. "It's important. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option." In the background, I heard my sister's voice, light, careless, completely unaware of the weight of the moment. "Mom, don't forget my appointment tomorrow. It took weeks to book, of course." Even then, I felt it. The familiar shift, the way everything in my family bent toward her, as if the rest of us existed in her orbit. "It's just a few hours." I pressed softly. My father sighed. "Fine, we'll come by in the morning." Not "we want to help." Not "don't worry." Just "fine." I told myself it was enough. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights felt too bright, too harsh. Nurses moved around me with practiced efficiency, their calmness almost surreal compared to the storm inside my chest. "Do you have someone waiting for you after the surgery?" One of them asked kindly. "Yes," I said automatically. "My parents are with my kids." The words tasted strange, like something I wasn't entirely sure was true. Before they wheeled me in, I called home one last time. My mother answered on the third ring. "We're here," she said quickly. "Everything's under control." In the background, I could hear my sister again, complaining about something. Her voice sharp, impatient. "Make it quick," she snapped. "We're going to be late." Late for what? But I already knew. My stomach dropped. "You're not leaving, right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A pause. "We'll see how things go." My mother replied vaguely. "Don't stress yourself before surgery. Don't stress," as if stress was a switch I could turn off, as if the unease crawling up my spine wasn't trying to tell me something important. When they took my phone and asked me to lie back on the narrow hospital bed, the world suddenly felt very far away. I stared at the ceiling as they adjusted the Roman 4 in my arm, the cold sensation spreading through my veins. "Count backward from 10. The anesthesiologist said gently. 10. My children's faces flashed in my mind. 9. My eldest, trying to be brave. 8. My youngest, clinging to me that morning, refusing to let go. 7. A flicker of doubt burned in my chest. 6. You should have found someone else. 5. You should have known better. 4. But who else did I have? 3. Who else was supposed to be there, if not them? 2. The question echoed louder than everything else. 1. And just before the darkness swallowed me whole, a single thought cut through the silence. "Please, don't let them leave my kids alone." When I woke up, the world didn't come back all at once. It crept in slowly, first the dull hum of machines, then the sterile smell of antiseptic, then the weight. A crushing, suffocating heaviness in my body. as if every limb had been stitched together with lead. My eyelids fluttered open, but even that felt like effort. "Can you hear me?" A nurse's voice floated somewhere above me. I nodded weakly, my throat too dry to form words. "You're out of surgery. Everything went well. Everything went well." The words should have comforted me. Instead, a sharp, immediate thought cut through the haze. My kids. My hand moved instinctively, searching for my phone. It wasn't there. Panic flickered in my chest, small at first, but growing. "My phone," I croaked. The nurse gave a reassuring smile. "It's right here. Take it easy." She placed it gently in my hand, and even that small weight felt too heavy. My fingers fumbled as I pressed the screen awake. 3 missed calls, 5 messages, all from my eldest. The air in my lungs vanished. With shaking hands, I opened the messages. "Mom, where are Nana and Grandpa?" A cold chill ran through me. They said they'll be back soon. My heart began to pound faster now, louder than the machines around me. "Mom, I'm scared." "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. "It's getting dark." The room tilted. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not from pain, not from surgery, but from something far worse. Fear, raw, sharp, consuming. I hit the call button, my fingers slipping against the screen. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" Her voice came through, small and fragile, too small. "Baby." I gasped, ignoring the pain that shot through my chest as I tried to sit up. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" There was a pause, and in that silence my worst fear began to take shape. "They left," she said quietly. Everything inside me went still. "What do you mean they left?" My voice trembled despite my effort to stay calm. "They said they had to take Auntie somewhere. They told me to lock the door and not open it for anyone." My grip tightened around the phone. "When did they leave?" "A long time ago," she whispered. "I tried calling you, but you didn't answer." Of course I didn't answer. I was unconscious on an operating table while my children sat alone at home. "Are the doors locked?" I asked quickly, forcing myself to focus. "Yes, windows, yes." Okay, listen to me," I said, my voice steadier now, even as my heart felt like it was tearing apart. "You did exactly right. I'm so proud of you." "I'm scared, Mom." Those 4 words broke something deep inside me. "I know, baby," I whispered, tears slipping down my temples into my hair. "I know, but I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere, okay?" I stayed on the phone with her, ignoring the nurse's concerned glances, ignoring the pain screaming through my body. Nothing mattered except her voice, except making sure she felt less alone than she actually was. When the call ended, I lay there in silence. The beeping machines continued their steady rhythm, as if nothing had happened, as if the world hadn't just shifted beneath me. "Do you need anything?" the nurse asked softly. I turned my head toward her, my expression numb. "My parents," I said slowly. "They were supposed to be watching my kids." She hesitated, her face tightening just slightly. "Do you want me to call someone for you?" "Someone." The word echoed in my mind, because suddenly, painfully, I realized something. There was no one else. Hours later, when I finally managed to get more details, the truth came out piece by piece. My sister had a hair appointment. A very important one. She didn't want to miss it. And my parents, my children's grandparents, had decided that her appointment mattered more than staying with 2 kids whose mother was in surgery. They hadn't even told me, they had just left. I stared at the ceiling, the anger building slowly, like a fire that didn't need flames to burn. This wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't confusion. It was a decision, a deliberate, conscious choice. My children had been scared, alone, waiting for someone who was supposed to protect them. And those people had chosen something else. Someone else, just like they always did. When my phone buzzed later that evening, I didn't even need to look to know who it was. My mother, I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then I answered. We were going to come back quickly. She said before I could speak, her tone already defensive. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I closed my eyes, my grip tightening around the phone. A bigger deal. I repeated quietly. They were fine. She insisted. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. The same words, the same dismissal, as if fear didn't count, as if abandonment didn't leave scars. In that moment, lying in a hospital bed I couldn't even get out of, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not all at once, but deeply, irreversibly, because for the first time I wasn't just hurt. I understood. I understood exactly where I stood in their lives, and more importantly, where they no longer stood in mine. The first few days after the surgery passed in a blur of painkillers, quiet hospital routines, and restless nights. But beneath the surface, something far more powerful than physical healing was taking place. Clarity. It didn't arrive all at once. It settled in slowly like dust after a storm. Soft, quiet, undeniable. I stopped expecting my phone to ring with an apology. I stopped replaying my mother's dismissive tone in my head, searching for a version of it that sounded like regret. It wasn't there, and it never had been. When I was discharged, the drive home felt different, not comforting, not relieving, just final. My children rushed to the door the moment I stepped inside. My youngest clung to my waist carefully, as if afraid I might break, while my eldest hovered close, her eyes scanning me like she needed proof I was really okay. We stayed together like you said. She told me, her voice carrying a quiet pride that didn't belong to a child her age. My chest tightened. You were so brave. I whispered, pulling them both close despite the ache in my body. I'm so proud of you, but pride wasn't the only thing I felt. There was guilt, heavy, suffocating. Not because I had trusted my parents, but because, deep down, I knew I shouldn't have. That night, after the kids fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room. The silence stretched around me, thick and unfamiliar, and for the first time I let myself remember. Not just what had happened that day, but everything that came before it. Every time my sister's needs came first. Every time I was told to be understanding, to be patient, to not make a scene. Every moment I had swallowed disappointment and called it love. I saw it clearly now. This wasn't new. I had just finally reached the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. The shift in me didn't come with anger, not at first. It came with distance. The next morning, when my mother called, I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, and another. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to punish her, but because, for once, I didn't feel the need to fix things. Days turned into weeks. My recovery progressed, slowly but steadily. But more importantly, so did something else. My independence. From my bed, then from the couch, then from the small desk by the window, I started working again. At first, it was just small freelance tasks, tiny projects that barely required energy. But they gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Every payment, no matter how small, felt like a brick, and I was building something solid, something that didn't depend on anyone who could walk away when it mattered most. I stopped asking for help, not because I didn't need it, but because I refused to need it from them. I arranged childcare through neighbors. I connected with other parents. I created a network that wasn't built on obligation or guilt, but on mutual respect. And slowly, something remarkable happened. Life became calmer. There were no sudden disappointments, no last-minute excuses, no quiet resentment simmering beneath forced smiles, just peace. My parents noticed. Of course they did. You've been distant, my mother said during one of the few calls I finally answered. Her tone wasn't concerned, it was irritated. I've just been busy. I replied evenly with what she pressed. I glanced around my living room, at my kids' drawings on the walls, at the laptop filled with ongoing work, at the quiet stability I had created piece by piece. With my life, I said simply, there was a pause, you're acting different, she said. For the first time, I didn't rush to reassure her. I didn't argue. I didn't bring up the surgery. I didn't demand an apology, because I realized something important. They already knew what they had done, and they had already decided it didn't matter. So instead of trying to change their minds, I changed my role in their lives. Months passed, and the distance grew, not dramatic, not explosive, just steady. I stopped showing up uninvited. Stopped volunteering my time, my energy, my resources. Stopped being the reliable one, the one who always said yes. The one who always sacrificed. And in that space I created, something new began to grow. Strength, not loud or visible, but unshakable. One evening, as I tucked my kids into bed, my eldest looked up at me. "Mom," she said softly, "you don't look sad anymore." The words caught me off guard. I smiled, brushing her hair back gently. "Do I look different?" She nodded. "You look stronger." I paused, letting that sink in. Stronger, not because of what I had endured, but because of what I had chosen to do after. That night, as I sat by the window, watching the quiet street below, I realized something that would have once scared me. I didn't need them anymore, not their approval, not their presence, not even their love, and for the first time in my life, that realization didn't feel like a loss. It felt like freedom. I didn't know it yet, but this quiet transformation, the boundaries, the distance, the independence, this was the beginning of something far more powerful than anger. It was the beginning of my answer, not loud, not cruel, but undeniable, and when the time came, they would feel it, not through what I said, but through what I no longer gave. By the time a year had passed, my life no longer felt like something I was trying to survive. It felt like something I had built, carefully, quietly, intentionally. The house was different now. Not in size or structure, but in atmosphere. It was warm, steady, safe. Laughter came easier, and the silence, when it came, was peaceful instead of heavy. My children had changed too. They smiled more, slept better. They no longer asked when Grandma and Grandpa would visit. They had stopped expecting, and that alone told me everything I needed to know. I had stopped expecting too. I no longer checked my phone for missed calls from my parents. I no longer rehearsed conversations in my head, imagining apologies that would never come. Instead, my focus had shifted entirely. Work had grown beyond anything I had imagined in those early days after surgery. What started as small freelance projects had turned into something steady, something reliable. Clients recommended me. Opportunities found me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to take care of me. I was taking care of myself and my children without hesitation, without disappointment. The call came on a quiet afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, curiosity, maybe made me pick up. "Hello." There was a pause on the other end. Then my father's voice, quieter than I remembered. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, my expression calm. "About what?" Another pause, longer this time. "We're having some problems," he admitted, "financial problems." I didn't respond immediately. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Perfectly. Over the next few minutes, the story unfolded in pieces. Bad decisions, unexpected expenses, my sister's lifestyle that had never quite matched her means, and now they were struggling. Struggling in a way they weren't used to. Struggling in a way they couldn't fix alone. And we thought. My father hesitated, his voice tightening slightly. Maybe you could help us out, just until things settle. There it was. The same expectation. The same unspoken assumption that no matter what had happened, no matter what they had done, I would step in. I always had. I looked across the room at my children. They were sitting on the floor, laughing over something small and silly, completely unaware of the conversation happening just a few feet away. Safe, secure, never again left waiting. A quiet strength settled in my chest. I can't, I said. The words were calm. Steady, certain. Silence followed. Then, almost immediately, my mother's voice cut in sharp, disbelieving. What do you mean you can't? I didn't flinch. I mean exactly that, I replied. After everything we've done for you. She snapped. You're going to turn your back on us like this. The irony was almost overwhelming, but I didn't laugh. I didn't argue. I didn't remind them of the hospital, of the phone calls, of the fear in my daughter's voice. I didn't need to. Instead, I spoke gently. I'm just unavailable. The same word they had used without saying it. The same absence they had given me when I needed them most. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. You're being selfish, my mother said, her voice rising. For a moment, I let the word settle. Selfish. It used to terrify me. Used to make me bend, compromise, sacrifice everything just to avoid being called that. But now it sounded different. Now it sounded like boundaries. I have responsibilities, I said quietly. My children come first. They've always come first. She shot back. I didn't respond because we both knew that wasn't true. The call ended shortly after, not with resolution, not with understanding, just with distance. The same quiet, growing distance that had been building for months. Only now they felt it too. Weeks later, I heard through extended family that things hadn't improved, that they were struggling more than they expected, that my sister was frustrated, blaming everyone but herself, and that my parents didn't quite know what to do. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the solution. At a small family gathering, months later, I saw them again. My mother's eyes lingered on me longer than usual. My father looked older somehow, his confidence dimmed. My sister barely acknowledged me. She thinks she's better than us now. She muttered loudly enough for me to hear. I met her gaze briefly, then I looked away, not out of weakness, but out of peace, because the truth was, I didn't feel better than them. I felt free from them, free from the constant need to earn love that should have been given freely. Free from the disappointment that had once defined my place in the family, free from being the one who always gave and gave and gave. As I left that night, my children ran ahead of me, their laughter echoing in the cool evening air. I watched them for a moment, something warm and steady filling my chest. This was my life now, not perfect, but whole. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't taken revenge in any dramatic, explosive way. I had simply done something far more powerful. I had stopped sacrificing myself, stopped fixing what I didn't break, stopped giving to people who only knew how to take. And in the end, that silence, that absence spoke louder than anything I could have ever said. Because while they were left wondering when I had changed, I already knew the answer. The moment they walked out the door and left my children behind,